Pues clase, ya saben ustedes mucho sobre los mandatos y en este capítulo lo más importante son los mandatos formales, porque si estamos en otro país no vamos a conocer a muchas personas y si no conocemos a las personas, si necesitamos pedir direcciones, entonces vamos a hablar con personas a quienes no conocemos. Por eso tenemos que ser formales. Pero a veces necesitamos los mandatos informales también, por eso vamos a repasarlos. Ya saben esa información, por eso voy a hablar muy rápido. No tienen que tomar muchos apuntes, pero es posible que quieren tomar unos. Esta misma presentación se puede encontrar en mi sitio de web, mi página de web. Si pueden ir a www.ppps.org y encontrar mi página web para encontrar esta presentación. Pues ya saben ustedes que usamos los mandatos informales cuando hablamos con una persona que es amigo o que es una persona menor que nosotros. No son normales porque tienen diferentes formas. They have different forms for affirmative and for negative commands. You already know this information. For negative commands, you're going to form these the same way as you do the formal commands, the ones that we're looking at in this lesson. So that means that you're going to start with the O form, drop the O, and add the opposite to form ending. So, two negative or negative informal commands operate the same way that all formal commands do. Formal commands don't have different forms for affirmatives and negatives. They use the exact same form, you just put no in front of it. But affirmative commands have different formation for affirmative and negative. The negatives do the exact same thing that the formal commands do. We learned that last week on Friday. So, for example, the verb salir, start with the O form, which is salgo, drop the O, which is salg, add the opposite ending, it's an IR verb, so you add AS, so the command, informal negative command is salgas. Elena, no salgas ahora, espera 10 minutos más. Elena, don't leave now, wait 10 minutes. You have seen this very presentation earlier this year. Okay, you took notes on this. We're just quickly whipping our way through this. Informal affirmative commands. This is the thing we need to remember. When we talk about commands in general, all commands are formed exactly the same way except for these two affirmative commands. For informal affirmative commands, they have their own set of rules. All of the other commands are formed the same way. So for informal affirmative commands, there are two steps to forming them. You start with the to form of the present indicative, the regular to form, and then you drop the S. It's that simple. The problem is remembering to do it this way instead of the other way, because this is the only command that does this. All of the rest of them start with the O form, drop the O, and add the opposite ending. So this is the oddball in the bunch, the black sheep of commands, if you will. Okay? This is not new material, once again. So, an example, escribir, an IR verb. Escribes is the to form. In the regular present tense, you drop the S. Escribe is your affirmative command for the informal singular command. Mario, escribe una carta a tu abuelo. Mario, write a letter to your grandfather. Informal, affirmative, singular command. So, a summary of the model verbs. If it's hablar, habla, and no hables. Comer, come, and no comas. Repete, which is a stem changer. Repite, no repitas. Irregular, informal, affirmative commands, what do we call these? Vin Diesel verbs. And here's why we call them Vin Diesel verbs. Because if you put them in the right order, they say Vin Diesel has 10 weapons. Vin Diesel has 10 weapons. Okay, if you arrange them in the right order, it helps us remember which ones they are. Okay, you don't have to copy this right now. This presentation is on my web page. You can go out there and get it for yourself, print it for yourself if you want to. Irregular, informal, negative commands, ir, dar, star, ser, and saber. We talked about these the other day as well because these are also irregular as formal commands. They're irregular as formal commands for the same reason they're irregular here. Their yo forms end in y, or their yo forms are irregular. So we have these strange, irregular, informal, negative commands. Don't forget about cargar and star verbs. We are going to spend time on it again today because we did it the other day. We did all of our thinking last Friday about this. That we're going to have a spelling change in cargar and star verbs so that we can preserve the sound system. But we want to make sure that we pay attention to what's going on with object pronouns and affirmative commands. When we want to use an object pronoun with an affirmative command, whether it's a direct object pronoun, an indirect object pronoun, or a reflexive object pronoun, we're going to attach them to the end of the affirmative command. Whether that command is the informal affirmative, formal singular affirmative, or formal plural affirmative, we will attach the object pronouns to the end. Now this is especially important when we consider a reflexive verb. You know, that we're sure that with a reflexive verb we're going to have a pronoun, so that's going to have to be attached to the end. But if we want direct or indirect object pronouns used with those verbs, they also must be attached to the end. And we're going to add an accent mark if the command has 2 or more syllables. Like Paco, come el sandwich, comelo, eat it. Okay? Now, object pronouns with negative commands. This is what students forget. If the command is negative, we're not going to attach it to the end. We're going to pull it off the end and put it between the no and the conjugated verb form. So, Paco no comas el sandwich, no lo comas. For any kind of reflexive, any kind of verb, using any kind of pronoun, this is how it will work out. So, that's the information I want you to be sure to focus on. Remember, when we have object pronouns, with an affirmative command, you attach it. If it's a negative command, you never attach it. Okay? And let's review. So that's why we did that so quickly. Once again, if you would like to, you can get that presentation that we just went through by going out to my web page. Look for Spanish 3, click on Spanish 3, and it'll be right there. All right. Why don't you wrap things up? Remember, you're doing activity 20 in the packet. You're beginning to study for the quiz because we're going to have a quiz on Friday. And we're going to let me read announcements to you at this point.